surrounded by this? I mean, what is this talent pool?
It's quite something to be a subject of, her gaze. That was really something.
I watched the show for the first time at the dub, and I came back home and I told my husband, I said, I think I'm great. I've done a...
Thank you for being here for this very special Film Companion front row session with the team of Delhi Crime Season 2, which I genuinely believe is one of the finest shows of this year. And it's so wonderful to be able to do it for this show in particular. I guess just before we kick off, just show of hands, who here knows who the hell I am? Could be worse, could be first. Slightly weird that my mom didn't put her hand up and she's actually in the audience, but that's cool. We'll make our peace with that. So I'm Suchin. I cover streaming for Film Companion. I'm usually just used to like staring at a camera and just like a very unimpressed crew staring back at me. But today we have a wonderful audience. Let's see how we get on. But before we kick off, let's just get a quick read of the room. Who here raise hands? Who here has seen all of season 2? Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. So this is going to be a breakdown, spoilery, post-mortem discussion. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, please don't throw any fruits or vegetables in my general direction. I think we have an official hashtag. I think, is it hashtag where's Anupama Chopra and who's this idiot? I think that's what it is, but I'll just double check that. And yes, last question, show of hands. Who is tired of raising their hands and just wants me to bring out the famous, talented people? Yeah? Should we do that? Please join me in welcoming the team of Delhi Crime Season 2. Actors Shefali Shah, Rasika Dugal, Rajesh Tailang, Tillotama Shome, and showrunner Tanuj Chopra. I think before we kick off, we should just take a second to just soak in the amount of collective talent currently on this stage. Is it just me? I mean, thank you so much, all of you, for being here. It's so rare and wonderful to watch a show that really swallows you whole and then get to talk to the artist behind it straight after, so thank you. I just want to start with a quick number and throw it at you guys before we kick off. I obviously loved this new season, but I'm not the only ones. I spoke to our partners, Ormax Media, and they gave us an indication of viewership. And as of the end of this week, Delhi Crime has hit 11 million views. Season 2, sorry. Yes. And this is only in India, so it doesn't count like the bajillion other countries that Netflix is in. Not a bad few weeks. So congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
I want to start with a bit of a confession. So when I first heard about season 2, I was worried and skeptical, because for me, season 1 really, is some of the most defining storytelling to come out of Hindi cinema over the last few years. And we've all seen, great storytelling that's then forced into a franchise and a season 2 that it doesn't need. And I was, of course, wrong to be worried because it really felt like such an honest, sincere follow-up to the story of these characters. But I have to start by asking all of you, when you were first approached for season 2, were there any sort of apprehensions? Shefali, Rajesh, Rasika, for you guys, you're returning to this world. Tillotama, you're stepping into it. And Tanuj, you've got the mantle of telling the story. So were there any sort of apprehensions of what this could look like and what this could be?
Nah. I think more people outside were more nervous than I was. I'm inheriting the best actors in all of India. I mean, this is right. It's you have talent like this, and then with the addition of Tillotama, what's there to be worried about? It's only an opportunity. And I think season 1, people came for the crime. They fell in love with the crime, but they fell in love with the characters. And my job was to see how do we move these characters forward. And any director is grateful for that challenge. And I had such a strong writing team. I want to acknowledge Shubhra Swarup is in the room as well. And it wasn't just the actors, I had so much support. So we felt good.
What about the rest of you? Were there any sort of worries or apprehensions stepping into the idea of season 2?
So one, there was just excitement and excitement and excitement. And I'm apprehensive about stepping into any script any character. I have this fear that the director will say action and I'll just stand there dumbfounded without knowing what to do. But yes, the parameters that season 1 set were very, very high. I don't think I ever questioned the second one. Like Tanuj had chosen such a intelligent and sensitive storytelling that, like he said himself, that the first one you came in for the crime and you fell in love with the characters, and the second one you have these characters and you travel with them and a crime happens. And he didn't say it, but one of my most favorite things he said is that when you're handed over such a rich legacy, you can only take it further off and let it flourish. I have goosebumps.
No, you are entirely right. I didn't even realize how much I missed these characters till I saw season 2. You really realize how much you missed being around them. Tillotama, what about you? I mean, you are stepping into this rich legacy, as she put it. Were there any sort of apprehensions, or did you dive straight in?
No, look at the part. You should feel apprehension. No, it was just, it was great to play something like this and to be a part of a show with actors like this. Like, what's there to complain about?
It's hard to top that cast, I have to say.
Yeah, and to work with Tanuj. We've done a bunch of short films when we were students and wanted to do crazy things, and this was our adulting moment.
And obviously we have to come to Madam Sir herself, DCP Rasika Chaturvedi. I am going to do something a bit odd and quote one of my own review on this. So I wrote that, Shefali is pure, palpable presence. The very atmosphere and temperature of the room changes when Rasika walks in. So I want to ask all of you, was anyone on set scared when she was in character? Because I would be. Any of the cast and crew?
In or out of character?
Yeah. You're scared.
When she was in that zone, did anyone just...
Not me. Like, Rasika and Bhupender share a very special relationship. So, but the mutual respect is the key to the relationship.
So nobody was worried about Madam Sir when she goes into the...
Not at all, because if you see her 2 seconds before she goes into becoming Madam Sir, you wouldn't worry about it.
Shefali, you also said, in a few interviews, that you said that season 1 was about Rasika, the hero, and season 2 is about Rasika, the human. And I want to share, and I really do think it's one of the, really all-time great performances and characters of the last few years. But I want to ask you about one of my favorite human moments of yours. It's the moment where you have that outburst against one of the denotified tribals. You've just got off the phone with your daughter, you had an argument, and then, ouch.
That's mine, don't worry.
Yeah, that captures the drama of that moment. No, but, somebody bursts into your office and you have this very weak moment where you really let yourself go. And more than that, the moment I love is the one that comes just after that, where you're shot from the back and you literally see her slump. And in in about 10 seconds, she feels sort of remorse, and she sort of comes to her senses and realizes what she's done. And you felt so much and you don't even get to see her face. So what were the kind of conversations and rehearsals that go into creating moments like that?
So there are a lot of conversations that go into overall the script, and then, of course, what you want to highlight. But when I go in front of the camera, I really don't know what I do. I really don't. And Tanuj can vouch that I hate rehearsals. The blocking and all is great, but beyond that, I just don't know what I do once the camera rolls. But it's, once you are in that zone, Rasika's become a part of my DNA now. I'm not being pompous about it. I'm just saying she's so close to me that I think all throughout, if you've become that person, you're just feeling like her. And it was just, I don't think we had long discussions about that.
There's no calculation, it just is.
See, you also know that there is a scene of the outburst and there is another scene where you go and apologize. So I know what must have happened in between. No? It's nothing that we need to discuss. We know what happened in between. Her remorse, her realization, and her want to correct it. So all of it.
I also want to talk to you about silence. I think one of the most one of the very special things about the show, it really is a masterclass of silence. Especially Vartika's team, all the officers, they share this sort of unspoken bond. It really isn't about what's said, but it's like they're all different parts of the same whole, living out, life on the front lines. I spoke to the show's editor, Antara Lahiri, about this, and I'm just going to quote what she said. She said, across the series, a lot of subtext is being conveyed using silences. A lot is said with just their eyes and expressions, which was possible because we had actors like these who can hold their silences so evocatively. And for me, I don't think there's anywhere you feel that more than with Vartika's relationship with Bhupinder. They share this, it's almost like a psychic link. It really isn't about, they just sort of know and they're always on the same page. So what goes into creating that dynamic with a co-actor, where it's not just comfort, but there's just, it's sort of such a shared presence?
There.
That's what
You can see.
Our conversation's done. We finished. We discussed it. Amongst each other.
Please catch us
No,
up.
it's really tough to get that as an actor because there are a lot of intangible moments there. तो बड़ा मुश्किल है, लेकिन मतलब luckily हम लोग इस the quality of the relationship we could crack in the first season only. अब उसको आगे कैरी करना एक टफ था, but when you have actors like Shefali with you, तो फिर क्या चाहिए?
Another thing too I would say is that they're such good listeners as actors. That's why their performances are so good. And I think finding that stillness and silence, finding powerful silences, comes from that ability to listen. And these are two tremendous performers, speakers, but they're better listeners at times, especially with each other. So that's the trick magic.
Speaking of Bhupinder, I have to tell you, when you were shot and in hospital, I literally messaged one of my friends while I was watching it saying, if he dies, I'm going to get violent. So good choice, just from a personal take. Rasika, I want to ask you, if you look at Neeti's arc this season, in many ways, it really captures a lot of the essence of the show, which is the insane conditions under which these officers have to operate personally, and emotionally. And obviously, you're torn between, your personal life with your husband and your job. I love that first scene as well. The first time we see her, she's in full uniform, and she tells her husband breakfast is ready. It's such a sort of strange, odd dynamic. And you've also said that your scenes with the actor who plays your husband, you said that you've improvised a lot of them. So what went into that dynamic and really escalating that tension till it finally breaks in the last episode?
So we didn't improvise the scenes that we finally shot. We actually did an exercise which I feel is very useful, which is to improvise scenes which might have happened between them, in between two scenes that you see on screen. I actually like to work like that a lot because it really gives you an opportunity to build a really nuanced history to this relationship. It's much better, in my opinion, than sitting in a room and thinking of ideas that you think are brilliant. It's just better to put it on your feet and just improvise that thing, because you get some lovely things in that. And we did a couple of improvisations because we wanted to make this a relationship which was about two people really trying to make something work, but just like Tanuj described it one day, just their timing being off. It's just that they don't arrive at the same place at the same time. They do arrive at the same place, but at different times. So that's how we wanted to make this. And I think we also wanted people to have empathy with Akash's character. It wasn't just about she be bearing the brunt of having to live with a man like this. But no, it was just about two people trying to make something work, but the uncertainties of their professions don't allow it to, or just that they're just not able to match each other all the time. So we rehearsed scenes which might have happened before a particular scene or in between two scenes. We improvised those, and we found some very interesting details, because if you sit and think about how you're going to do this scene, you'll think of some fairly good ideas, but when you put it on its feet, it's just something else. You get moments which you probably could not have thought of. So those were very interesting.
I have to say my empathy for Akash is slightly limited, because you do get the sense he has a lot more respect for his own uniform, and he almost treats you like you're a city organizer rather than what you really do. But fair enough. We obviously do feel for him, but not as much as
Oh, great. I'm happy.
No, that's just my reading of the film. Also, I did speak to the show's DP, David Bolan, and he told me that those are his favorite scenes to shoot with you and Akash. Tillotama, we also have to talk about creepy killers in context of the show. So, they say that what makes a great antagonist is someone who you really empathize with them, and it really is their circumstances that have created what they've become. Also, I know you've talked about how you don't enjoy talking about the process, and you want the work to speak for itself, but then I would be out of a job, so I have to ask. What I found really interesting about Karishma, who obviously is the big killer this season, is we see glimpses of what was her past. We see, the fact that she was a thankless wife, she had this child, she aspired to this life that she wanted. And then we see the after, which is this sort of gruesome killer she's become because she's trying to get a better life, but we never get to see the in-between. So did you create a backstory for her? And in your mind, what was her snapping point that made her into what she becomes?
Yeah, we created a backstory because it was important, whether one shoots it or doesn't, or there were some reiterations. The idea of the salon, the idea of beauty, beauty parlor, I think went very well with this aspiration of being something, of being seen, of not being invisible. So that backstory, and I also another important thing was about her not wanting to be a mother. We essentialize the role of that all women must love to be mothers, but she says, I was not asked. I didn't want a child. And I think that thread of wanting to be somebody, of wanting to be seen, and the notion of making her own family, a family where she could be who she's always dreamt of being. I think I really just focused on that because the crime is violent. And she suffers from deep psychosis to have committed such a crime. But that's already there on paper. So the work was for me to really relate to her desire. What are her dreams? What are her desires? And I've been there, and I think we've all been there, right? Where we want to be somewhere and the road looks really long. But we are quite dogged about getting there. And I could relate to that.
Tanuj, I also want to ask you about atmosphere. So much of this show is this dense atmosphere. You really feel like you're in the station. You feel the sleep deprivation, just the desperation in the air of what all these officers are going through. What is the art of creating that? Because, Delhi Crime is one of those few shows where it really is a feeling and it puts you in a state of mind. And I spoke to David Bolan, and he said that one of the references you guys had was Seven, David Fincher's film. But yeah, what goes into creating that sort of dense atmosphere for an audience?
It's an intangible thing, actually, and it takes a bit of experience. I think you have to use all your tools as a filmmaker. First thing that creates atmosphere is the mood you create with your actors and the mood you create amongst them. As well as the mood you create with them. I think everybody follows that cue. I think talking through scenics, talking through compositions, how we move through space, what's our lenses, what's our language cinematically, that's a big conversation that adds to it with David. I know my composer, I know what he'll add to places. So part of it is thinking through, okay, what sounds, what feel, what music adds to this section of it. Another tool, we have to use is my production design, my art design. What colors are we sitting in? And I think also a lot of it is like, sometimes not saying cut like as soon as the scene is over, letting things breathe a little bit in the takes, and it's a subtle art of managing all of your tools as a director and knowing who your collaborators are. It's great you picked up on it. Atmosphere was one of our biggest conversations behind the scenes with David. He referenced Seven, but we also referenced Days of Being Wild by Wong Kar-wai, because he creates these great mosaics that are so actor-driven. There's so much love and consideration for the performers in it, and I wanted to bring that into the show. And that's a huge part of creating atmosphere is their faces, actually. So I'm glad you picked up on it. And I'm giving you the human answer, but there's another sense to it. It's yeah, you just know it when you see it, and you know you got the take, and something about it generates an energy that all your collaborators sort of rally around and try to find more frames that achieve that, you know.
David also asked me to ask you what your reference image was for this season.
Tell me, I want to know.
I also want to know.
I think we all want to know.
He's being a funny asshole. It was a cartoon image of a little boy with a hat with a single tear going down his face, because I don't know why we just...
That's what you think of when you think of telecrime?
Actually, you know, one of the image I keep coming back to is this image of Faye Wong from Chungking Express with her head to the window of a train, and there's just this energy of the city, you know, light passing by, and I just think there's something, there's some mood in that portrait that I just felt it's just like the beautiful human element of the show that I wanted to mainline. So I keep thinking of that one, actually.
Sure, but now I wanted to ask all of you, are there any specific scenes that, you know, when you watch yourselves, do you feel like, you know, either they're your favorite scenes or you just felt like nailed it, like I really felt what I wanted to feel? Because if there's ever a show to have those moments, it's this one. I mean,
Tilly, start with you now. Because.
did you ever freak yourself out watching Karishma and thought like, okay, she's scary?
Yeah, I did get scared. I was like, this is looking very bad. Because I was hitting a bed and a pillow. And then there's a poor, beautiful old lady. She's so pavam looking, and, you know, and like, she has a beautiful face. And when I saw them having drinks and that party from the outside, like, don't do this, yeah, don't do this. This is really bad, because, you know, then it's just like, oh, you know, felt terrible. What was the question?
I said, do you have any specific moments that reach out, you know, that leap out to you when you're watching the show and you really felt specific scenes really stuck with you, as an audience or even as a performer?
There was this, we had done this, talked about this scene a lot. I'm specific to Karishma's character, and that when she comes into this place that she's bought, which is going to be her salon, and so we did the scene, and then, and like he said, he doesn't call cut. And I was like, okay, there's another room. All right, he's not calling cut. So I went into another room, then looked out of the window, and I saw someone on the other side in a house. And suddenly the penny dropped. That this is what she does. She's looking at people, and I started looking at that man, and I don't know how long I was there. And once I had seen him enough, he goes in, the sun comes out, you know, and then I'm assuming the relationships, that this must be the sun, this is what's happening. And then he still hasn't called cut. So I was like, okay, there are 2 rooms and one under construction room, you know. So I walked out, I went to that under construction place, and there was the sunlight was falling on the wall, and it looked like strands of hair, you know. So then I was like, "Are yahan to baal kaategi na ye." So then I, you know, I did it, and then from the corner of it, I was like, God, David is shooting this also. I was like, this has got to end. This haircut is just like, and I didn't even realize that this is all going to be, you know, make it to the show. And I was so, it just felt, I felt so, so grateful to be part of a process where you're allowed to just, you know, you don't wait for the, and that cut was so just felt between us that.
So moral of the story is never call cut.
I still haven't said cut.
Yeah. Just still in character.
I'd run out of room and we walk into
Ceiling.
Yeah.
What about the 3 of you? Were there any specific moments where, you know, it really stuck with you?
So you asked whether there were some moments that you feel we nailed it. So I watched the show for the first time at the dub, and I came back home and I told my husband, I said, I think I'm great. I'm gonna... One second. There's more to the story. And I said, I got every moment right, you know. I mean, I could see everything I was feeling, and it was just super. And then I watched it again.
You shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, that was a mistake. So I watched it again and I was like, shit, I'm so bad. So this is what happens, I guess, as performers. So we are not objective about our work at all. But there is a scene that I really love. And that is it starts with me interacting with Bhupender. And Bhupender and Neeti don't have so much interaction through season 1 or 2 actually, but there's that moment where I've lost Jugnu and Azad and I've come back very guilty and I'm walking to Vartika's.
And it gives that really supportive look of just that.
Yes, yes, it's a very lovely moment. And then I walk into Vartika's cabin and then we have this scene, which actually we shot twice. We've shot that scene twice. But every time I've done that, I've really enjoyed that scene. I don't know, I think I like getting fired by her. But yeah, there was this one moment in that scene which I had spent some time with a police officer in season 1 and I'd gone back to meet her in season 2. And you know, when you do work as an actor, you're very excited about some details that you've seen and you're like, ye to main use karungi, you know. So there's when you wear a beret as a police officer, if you hang around with police people often enough, you know that they do this so that the symbol is in the correct position. So they're very particular about all this because police protocol is very like, you have to follow it, you know, all these small things have to be done. So the first time we shot that scene and I was entering her cabin, I was like, my research has to be in this show, you know. So I did this and I wore the beret and I entered and I was like, this is going to be the best scene I've ever done in my life.
All the police officers who watch this, they're going to appreciate it. Yeah.
And then it so happened that the second time we shot that scene, there was a continuity thing and I couldn't have my beret. So the final scene, we don't have that in the way that the show is right now. We don't have that. So I felt very bad. And in fact, one day I called Tanuj. Recently, I was shooting for something else and I saw a forest officer wearing his beret. And before he wore his beret, he did this. And I was like, see? I was like, see? I almost cried, you know. It was like that moment where I know you, you know me. You know, it was one of those. And that's when I messaged Tanuj and I said, do you think that bit can still make it to the edit? But it didn't.
Never going to let that one go, ever.
I do love that scene. You know, obviously the moment that both of you share, it's a very Delhi crime moment where it's just that little beat. And even when, Vartika is talking to you and just everything you convey with your eyes, you know, it really is, you know, you're obviously ashamed of her. You're obviously so sort of angry with her. You're obviously so let down. You're also oddly protective of her because you know that maybe you could suspend her. And it's just again, in those few fleeting moments, we get to see so much. But no, again, for both of you, were there any scenes that really stuck with you?
Like, favorite scene of mine is when I go to leave Jugnu and Azad.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And there you see a glint of a reformist in him. And लेकिन उसको forefront पे नहीं रख सकते थे. So that was one of my favorite scenes as an actor to do. And my favorite scene of the whole series is Tillotama when she's throwing clothes. That moment.
Shefali, what about you? Any sort of...
Lots of moments. Lots and lots and lots of moments. I love that moment where Subhash gets up to give a speech.
That was
I
very fun.
think
We enjoyed it.
And you know, it's
Shooting.
not just funny. You suddenly in that moment see that whole team come together as one, which is what DC is about. I still get goosebumps when I think of it. And when she comes to the hospital, that moment when she sees Bhupi go, and the beauty is, Tanuj has kept it just this much. You just see her just enough. Like it's not lingering on her, but you see how broken she is. Like, this is really destroyed. Or when she comes in and she doesn't know what to say to him, and she says, "Kya Bhupinder?" I mean, like, you know, these small things. Also, I love the print this. I love the print this.
That's a mic drop moment.
I love that moment. And I think the moment between Tilly and me, it's again...
When you said, why did you do it?
Yeah, and more than that, just somewhere I think she understands her, which is maybe not right, but she understands what this girl is saying, but violence isn't the answer. And the last drive back, there is no win for Vartika. She's lost, irrespective. She got this woman, but how many people, what can I do? Can I correct the society? It's a loss for her.
It's like you've won that battle, but the war is still being lost.
Yeah.
Speaking of that moment, there is already talk of a season 3. So I have to ask, can anyone confirm anything, or just give me one of those looks?
Okay, so there is a director here, there's a producer here, there is Netflix here.
Can we just get on the same WhatsApp group?
I
Make this happen?
really need to know. Nation wants to know. I want to know.
The question is, do you want season 3?
I think now we do. The people have spoken. This and I think 11 million others. So I think we should.
Well, maybe we should do it.
I'll just ask one last question, and we'll take it to the audience. Tanuj, just one last question for you. Everyone I've spoken to about this show, I've spoken to writers, David, editors, etc. They've all said one thing. This was a very challenging season to make for various reasons. Production delays, COVID, all kinds of things out of your control. And they all say that you never, your spirit never broke. You always, through 2 years, stuck with it till the end and made the show you want to make, despite every challenge possible. What kept you going?
Maybe I'm crazy.
I confirm that.
No, but I think the idea of seeing Shefali Shah face off with Tillotama Shome at the end is such a gift, I think, for this medium and for India. We all want to see this conversation, and I think I just knew we had that. We shot it in one phase of the shoot, and I just knew I had that scene. It meant so much to me. I think of films like Heat, Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. Like, this is what I'm trying to do, is make Heat. And I wanted to honor that scene. And so it's just that simple. It's like I had to make the rest of it work so we get there. So we see that iconic interaction. And I hope it's something that reverberates and is remembered. And it's like that weird. It's like that simple. It's just that I just had to complete the thought. And I happen to be a stubborn MF.
We're very glad that you are. I think with that, we will take a few questions from the audience. So we have a few questions here. I think you guys can just pick names, and then the audience will go.
You want us to just...
Yeah, just say the name, and then hopefully the people are here.
Arohi Sharma.
So, Tanuj, for you, as a maker, we generally create things that resonate with us, or we have a certain intention behind what we do. Season 1 particularly was something that personally affected me because I am from Delhi, and at that point of time, a lot of things were happening around the girls as a new story. So what was your intention to actually make a show on crimes that have already happened?
I think for DC, the crime is just, especially if season 1, we said early on, we're not trying to make season 1 again. We can't do that again. We need to go into a new direction. And I think, this beauty of this show is the crime has happened, and there's many ways to interpret it. There's many ways to play it out, whether you play it in real time, whether it's a memory of a crime. But this show is about the characters and humanizing these cops' journeys. And sometimes we joke around, like maybe season 8 there'll be no crime at all. You'll just begin their personal lives. So we're at this point, and so part of the crime isn't so much the crime is a big piece of it, but how it affects our characters, how it affects their relationships, and how they grow through it, and what they learn, and what it says about crime is sometimes more important in this season than the actual crime itself. I'm going to pass the mic.
How has it affected me? That's what. How is Vartika? So Vartika's, we are pretty similar. I like to believe I'm conscientious. I like to believe that I accept my mistakes and I want to correct them, because I think it's a very simple thing to do rather than complicating it, because then you just get into a loop of trying to cover up and then trying to repair it. It's just a mess. Rather say, Acha, I'm sorry, my bad, let's correct it. I like to believe I'm righteous. I think one of the strengths of Vartika is she knows the power she holds. and she doesn't find the need to enforce it. When she walks in, she knows the respect she gets. So she doesn't need to demand it. Not by raising her voice, not by proving that I'm the boss. And and another thing which I think is very similar in Vartika and me, which I pride myself for, is I believe I'm as good as my team is. And my team is very dear to me. Very dear to me. See, right answer. Oh, it's my question. Sorry. Prasad Anil Alai.
First of all, big fan. It's so good to see all your favorite actors in a full-fledged series. So my question is to all the actors. What differences you saw like in the Richie's direction and Tanuj's direction in season 1 and season 2?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's.
Oh, wow. I've never, that's a very interesting question because nobody's asked. No, I mean it. Like nobody's come up with this question, which is really commendable. Rishi's direction, when I met Rishi, I think he had gone through the process where he reached the script. When I met Tanuj, he had started and he was going through it. So when DC1 came to me, it was a solid blueprint. So obviously, as a director, you've gotten 4 years of research, time to work on your script. So you can just put that aside and work on what you're doing. Like I keep saying to Tanuj, you either need to be ridiculously brave or ridiculously crazy. And I think he's both. Because he took on something which was somebody else's baton and he made it his own. He did not have the time that Rishi had and he still owned it. So, I saw that process, the struggle, the fight, and persistent, positive, ho jayega, kar lenge. And generous, which is a lot. So I'm not taking away, what Rishi has given us is legendary. And he's again one of my favorite directors and he's a very, very dear friend. But I did not see that struggle period with him. With Tanuj, I've seen it. So I think that's a big part. Also, I don't think the soul of DC has changed. It's not changed at all. When you go into looking at it minutely, you'll realize that DC1 was shot in the day, DC2 is shot in the night. So the visual language changes. But when I saw the promo and the teaser, I was like, I still get goosebumps and I was like, whoa, I've straight got back to DC1. So that soul hasn't changed and they both have their own individual languages, which is so beautiful. They have their own craft, they have their own team. And that's why it's so unique. Each season is so unique and yet it's bound by one DNA. So yeah, I think they're both fab. That's for you and Rishi. Aww.
That was a good question. If you want a job at FC, we'll talk.
That's a really good question, I must tell you, Prasad. It's a very, very good question.
Shoradiya Chaudhary.
Hi, everyone. So my question is that how as performers and also as director, you switch off when the market is so sensitive?
We are trained to switch on and switch off, चाहे कैसा भी content हो. And I think that's, if I am not being able to do that, I am not worth my salt.
Okay, so I'm not worth my salt then. Then I'm not worth my salt.
Drashti Singh.
Hello, so my question is for everyone. What is the one acting skill that you have learned from each other as co-stars?
That's another good one.
That's another good question, yes. Rajesh is so fluid I mean, he's one of the most fluid actors I have seen. There would be days when I was not required. Like, we'd do a master and then they were covering, mostly we'd all be there because you never knew where the camera was going to go. Also, we wanted to be there present to give other people cues, etc. But even if the camera was not on me, I never wanted to move away because I was just watching him. I mean, it's like, I can't explain it. I really can't, but y'all can see it when you see his work. Rasika just doesn't give up. And I really wish I had that quality. Because there is a certain thing that we both are completely the opposite end of the spectrums. She loves to do retakes. And not because she's not got it right. She's gotten it right, but she still feels I'll better it. While I'm like, after the second and third one, I'm like, I can't do this because now it's become a pattern for me. I'm going to repeat it. I'm just going to copy it. I'm not going to bring anything new to the table. Tilly, when I heard her in the interviews, I mean, we all know what a brilliant actress she is. I genuinely believe you can't teach acting. Either you have it or you don't have it. You can sharpen it. But I think you see what she's seen, her observations, her understanding, her pain, her fear coming from others, and I can see it translated onto screen. A lot of actors can feel it, but it may not necessarily translate. So, I mean, all of that, I just am I'm lucky to be surrounded by this. I mean, what is this talent pool? Now you say nice things about me? 1 minute, don't clap. They all have to say nice things about me.
First thing, thank you, Shefali, for
most welcome. Abhi bolo. Next.
This seems rehearsed.
Yeah, obviously. See, now you can make a disclaimer.
Unrehearsed things seem rehearsed, all the rehearsed things seem unrehearsed.
No, as an actor, my approach towards acting is I never think about what the character is feeling. I always think about what the character is thinking. Because I think emotions are byproduct of, or feelings are byproduct of thoughts. But if you approach like this, sometimes you tend to lose the spontaneity thing. So she's the master of it, the spontaneity and playing emotions. Like, तो वो चीज़ आपसे मैं हमेशा सीखता हूँ.
और भी बोल सकती हूँ.
अब ऐसे तो फिर बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाएगा. तो मतलब अभी सारा मैं बहुत देर तक बोल सकता हूँ. रसिका हमेशा जो एक आपने कहा कि लगी रहती हैं एंड मैं शर्म कर जाता हूँ फॉर आस्किंग फॉर वन मोर टेक एंड ये बिल्कुल ढीठ होके कि 1 नहीं 2 नहीं 5 भी रीटेक्स. तो मुझे अच्छा लगता है अगर उसमें शॉर्ट में हूँ तो मुझे बिकॉज आई ऑलवेज वांट टू डू एज मेनी टेक्स एज पॉसिबल. आई वांट टू डू लॉट ऑफ रिहर्सल्स. इस मामले में थोड़ा सा उल्टा हूँ आपसे.
I have to tell you that, David, the DP told me that. He said that every time Rasika nailed the take, she would still go up to him and ask him, can you please say there's something wrong with the camera so we can do another one? I want to try something different.
Because the technical
now you know
guys
this one.
always get another take because nobody else knows what went wrong, right? So if the DOP says, I didn't get the shot, everybody will be like, okay, you didn't get the shot, we'll do it again. But if an actor says, can I have another take? They're like, why? And then you're like, now I'll have to sit and explain why. I don't know why. I just feel like I can do one better.
And I think the one take artist is, the sentence is फालतू का कि क्या nothing great about being a one take artist.
Yeah, I agree.
है ना. ओके टेक अच्छा आना चाहिए. पिछले वाले टेक कौन देखता है? मतलब ये लोग देखते हैं एडिटिंग में गालियाँ देते होंगे पीछे से, वो एक अलग बात है. बट फ्रॉम तिलोत्मा आई वुड लाइक टू learn because I couldn't get a chance to work with her, but the microscopic work she does. मीनाकारी करती है ना, तो मीनाकारी सिखाइए.
No, I want to hear everything nice about me. I'm sorry, this one has to continue. I'm sorry.
No pressure.
Chalo.
This became a long answer. Huh?
I don't
Gave a
care.
necessary answer. This feels like therapy a little bit.
Yeah, it does feel like that. The correct kind of seat. No, every time I go to a project, and earlier on I used to always feel that मैं अपना काम अच्छे से कर लेती हूँ. I have all these loose ends tied, and it'll turn out to be good. I don't have to do anything more than that. But I think Shefali's really taught me how to look at a scene from everybody's perspective, and from the perspective of all the actors, and also from the perspective of other departments. So it's really this process where she's taking everybody together to do this scene, and that's so beautiful. It's a very important thing to learn as an actor. Rajesh, I think I'm very, very fond of him as an actor. He's brilliant. There's just so much sincerity and love with which he plays every moment. It's very nice to watch. And even that one moment that we exchanged, there are some shoot days when you go back home and you feel like aaj kuch magical hua, and that was really the feeling that I had from him, just from that one thing. And that's just very important to experience as a performer, because it doesn't matter if it doesn't even translate on screen. It really makes you feel like all of this is worth it. So I think that's something very special. Tilly and I had very little to do with each other, but we've been husband and wife in a film called Kissa. So we worked very intimately, and I feel like we've grown up together almost, because our acting journeys have sort of the Kissa was a very important part of that journey. So that'll always be very, very special, and I wish we had more to do together.
So I'll start with Rasika. Not just in Kissa. When I see Rasika on screen, she makes everyday things, the familiar things, like magical. It's not, you feel like it might be something the camera did, that the light became soft, and there's barish and it's not, it's her. And I think that's just her spirit. I think who she is as a person. Rajesh, I didn't have scenes really. Just watching him in this show and everything, I really want to apply even a fraction of what he did in this show in a project that I'm going to do soon, where I realized the way he listens, like actors have to listen, but there's listening, and then there's...
I'm listening, please.
there's his listening. I don't know if I've seen like the way he is there in a room, because he is listening. He's so inscrutable. Like, I want to know, what is he thinking, and that makes me very excited when I want to know. Abhi ye scene chal raha hai, the camera has panned and it's left him and gone. So what is he thinking right now? And that, I think, is such a wonderful lingering feeling to have, about an actor. And Shefali, when I had that scene with her, firstly, I think it's a really overwhelming, this exercise. Your question has made us all very emotional. To be the focal point of her gaze was an experience for me, because we were just sitting across each other, and off screen in that scene, which you will not see, but I hope you felt it, was the generosity that she brings, and I really felt, I forgot everything in that moment. I just felt there were two women, like दो सखियां बैठ के बात कर रही हैं, and that's because I really think she has the ability to look into you, and when someone can look into you like that, and when you're seen like that, you feel to be seen, you feel, like I'm seeing you, but to be really seen like an X-ray, it's quite something to be a subject of, her gaze. That was really something.
For the record, I do think you can do more with your eyes than I've seen entire actors do with their entire bodies, which is a fact. Do we have time for another question? Yes.
मैंने पेपर ही फाड़ दिया है। आश्रय राव.
Hello everyone. I just had a question. What is the kind of research that went into creating this kind of show? I mean, at some point were you guys talking to, say, actual police officers?
Sure. I mean, we bring the research in from season 1, that's set the show's language and template. So we already come with a big bottle of research. And then as we go, we interview police officers, we interview victims of this crime, we interview reporters who covered these crimes back in the day. We talk to survivors, we talk to people who've discovered survivors. We do a bit of groundwork too. We get on to Delhi and walk around and see our locations, our areas, absorb what the neighborhoods should feel like. And then I think finally we talk to academics too, who can help contextualize the bigger crime. So it's a multi-point of research, and then I think just the discussions we have with the writers in the room. Sometimes it's not hard research, but we all bring our own. We have writers from Delhi, writers who've had a lot of experiences in Delhi, writers who've experienced crime, writers whose parents are police officers or IAS officers. So everybody's bringing in their own personal narratives, and that's sometimes the richest research there is the human stories behind that go into it, because those conversations create revelations.
Did that stress, you're obviously making this season under insane conditions. Did any of that stress sort of bleed into the show in a positive way?
I think you can say that, but it's like what they say with Van Gogh, right? Like, is his art great because he's mad, because of his madness? And I like to think like, well, how good could it have been if he didn't have the issues that he had? So yes, the stress and pressure breaks pipes and pressure makes diamonds and all those things, but you don't want it as a filmmaker. You don't need it as a filmmaker. You actually want the road clear, because I think you can make even more without it. But I just happen to, try to punch back a little bit in this movie.
I think it's what you said, that you have to be, was it either very brilliant or just insane?
And he's both.
Yeah, it's a fine line. Thank you so much, all of you, for this. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.